States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Mr. Alt? Mr. Beistel? Here. Mr. Calero? Here. Mrs. Love? Here. Mr. Miller? Here. Mr. Polakowski? Here. Mrs. Rhodes? Mrs. Shipley? Mr. Bentz?
Here. Let the record show that Mr. Alt indicated that he was not feeling well this evening, and Mrs. Shipley had to be at her place of employment this evening. So 6 present. Citizens' comments? We have no comment cards this evening. Minutes? And next week you'll be asked to approve the minutes of the Finance Committee meeting of March 26th, the discussion meeting of April 2nd, the voting meeting of April 9th, and the Finance Committee meeting of April 22nd. Any questions or comments on that? Question?
The Finance Committee meeting on, you said May 22nd?
Well, we had talked about the 21st and the 20th. We're going to have a special voting meeting after this meeting to make that decision.
Okay.
Anything else? Hearing none. Finance? You'll be asked to approve the financial reports for the month of April. Questions? Seeing none. Discussion, curriculum planning for next year. I've asked the administrators to provide you with some information in terms of the direction we're trying to go with curriculum for next year, so I'll turn things over to Dr. Scott, and we have a number of people that will be sharing information with you tonight. I'll let the record show Mrs. Rhodes is just coming in.
Thank you, Dr. Milner. If first I could have Mr. Clara and Mr. Pushkar step up to the microphone, please. I'm very excited first to talk about what we are referring to as Southmoreland's Sustainable Technology Refresh Plan. As Southmoreland School District continues along the journey of fulfilling our mission of high-quality learning for all, it is imperative that we prepare students for college, career, and the opportunities presented from living in the 21st century. Michael Thorne is careful to remind us that making digital devices available and becoming sophisticated in their use is not necessarily learning. We cannot allow ourselves to be fooled by thinking that just because we are one-to-one, that we are promoting high levels of learning. In the new model of schooling, we need teachers to be change agents who develop the capacity of themselves and their colleagues to generate quality solutions that affect student achievement on a large scale. Schools that connect technology to pedagogy will be well positioned to do this. The Sustainable Technology Refresh Plan for the Southmoreland School District involves using Google Chromebooks in a one-to-one learning environment for all teachers and students. Southmoreland Middle School will be the first school involved in the 3-school phase-in. 12 middle school teachers will be receiving their Chromebooks, and a training is tentatively scheduled for May 18th, where we will explore the Google educational environment. The remaining middle school teachers will get their Chromebooks in late August when we return for the 15-16 school year. Time will be spent in the fall for additional teacher training as well as preparing parents and students for the rollout, which will occur in January. And what we have for a 3-school phase-in involving all of our schools except our primary center at this point is about an 18-month plan where in the winter of 2016, the high school teachers would receive their Chromebooks and begin training, and also the student and parent training would begin in the winter of 16. Then in the fall of 16, the high school students would receive their Chromebooks, SES teachers would receive theirs and begin their training, and also students and parents would start with that training process. And then in the winter of 2017, January 17, SES students would receive their Chromebooks. Dan, John, and I have been partnering. Most especially, I'd like to thank Bethel Park. They're about a year ahead of us, and they've been very helpful with this ambitious plan. We think this is a very new, exciting era for Southmoreland, and specifically, here I am talking one-to-one, Chromebook, Mr. Clara is going to begin talking about the educational issues surrounding it. John is going to talk more about some big picture of the management environment, but the first thing you need to know, what the heck is a Chromebook? And Dan's going to start with that.
Thank you, Dr. Scott. First question you're going to have is, what does that look like? What does a Chromebook look like? Can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah, that's better.
What does a Chromebook look like and what does it do? I'm going to have John show you. He's holding a Chromebook now. A Chromebook is a different breed of computer. It runs on Google's web-based Chrome OS, which is designed to be used with an internet connection. Its documents and apps exist in the cloud. It's a way for us to use the same technology for all kids to communicate, to write, to develop projects, and to work with teachers in a more one-to-one and more 21st century kind of a way. First thing I want to tell you about this program is that it's not a curriculum. This is part of how we get kids to be successful in curriculum. And our data shows right now that kids are learning at the highest levels maybe that they ever have in our tenure as a school district. But if we're not preparing for them to be able to show that in a 21st century way, then again, they're kind of at a disadvantage. In our own lives, how many of us really write anything anymore, handwrite anything, and deliver that to anyone? Often you're sending it via email or you're typing it. And so we want kids who have that knowledge to be able to express it in a 21st century way, whether that is working somewhere or whether that is as you go to post-secondary life in college. The issue is not that we are concerned about what kind of concepts we teach, but rather how kids will show you that they've grasped the concept in a meaningful and authentic way. When you're producing those kinds of documents or you're producing those kinds of things that show your learning in a 21st century way, it might be a blog, it might be a document that you work on with others in real time. Those are the kinds of activities that you will be expected to do in your work life. And so often the question is, are you preparing kids for what they will be asked to do? Well, Michael Fulham will tell you that we're preparing for things that we can't even know about yet because they don't exist. But one thing we can promise you is that we will be working with the equipment, the technology that is in front of us now. Some of the things that you'll see differently, changing how we teach, that's inverting classrooms. A lesson that once upon a time might have been taught during that 40 minutes could be watched at home on your Chromebook, and the next day could be spent in practice with the teacher where they could actually watch how you interact with that work. Writing those Google Docs. Google Docs allow us to communicate together in real time. Dr. Scott and I have written some things, not been in the same room, but been able to write on the same document at the same time and talk to each other about the things that we're working on. That's a great collaborative tool for kids to know how to do. You will be asked to work in teams in your work life. Google Forms, that allows us to create tests that are both formative and summative. Formative meaning things that are happening as you're doing the learning. Summative, which is how we know that you got it at the end. And that matches the non-negotiables that we have as a district. There are 3 non-negotiables we really want to ensure that kids get. First one is timely feedback to inform students how they did. You can get feedback in real time. Teachers can comment on things as you're working on them or see them in an email and respond to them. The second thing is reflecting on our own teaching practices. Those Google Forms will allow people to see how kids are doing on a question that they ask. Kids may answer yes or no. If many kids are answering no and you were expecting a yes answer, you're able to immediately address that question and make sure that kids are getting what you need them to get. And the third thing is, as we're looking at our 3, metacognition, thinking about your thinking. Kids will be asked to think at higher levels now because as they're producing these work products, they might be asked to talk about why they did it that way. They might be recording themselves answering a question in an essay. Hey, I read this story last night, and here are 3 things I had questions about from my teacher, or 3 things I learned from it. It's changing the way that we get kids to show us what they know. And that's true of the way that the 21st century works now. We do things very differently than we even did 10 years ago. And in order to talk about what that technology will look like and how we'll support it, Mr. Pushkar is going to talk a little bit about how Chromebooks will work in schools.
All right, so I passed around the Chromebook, and y'all put your hands on it and probably thought to yourself, looks like a laptop, yeah? And what's all the excitement? I've seen laptops before. The Chromebook is really just like the vehicle or to be able to get us where we want to go. It's a device, much like anything else. How many of you have a smartphone? Better than 50%. So if you're familiar with the smartphone, all your pictures are there. A lot of your favorite apps. You check the news, check your email, you text your friends and family. And as long as you have that with you, you feel like you got everything you need. One of our biggest problems with technology for the students is everything stayed here. Yeah. Any work that they've done on the computer is either physically on the computer or on one of our servers. What if a kid wants to continue their work at home? Well, then the kid has to have his own personal flash drive, know how to transfer that information back and forth between that flash drive and their computer, our computer. A lot of times they didn't have the same application, or a lot of times if kids did work at home, they emailed it to their teacher, and the teacher would email me saying, a kid emailed me their assignment and I can't open it because, well, they had open office and we use Microsoft Word or something like that. This kind of eliminates all those problems. This is your own personal computer. All your work that's done here isn't on this computer, isn't on any of our servers. It's on the cloud, okay? It's stored on Google servers that's accessible from anywhere that you have internet access. So if a kid has to go to, say you have one of our students needs to go to Children's Hospital for an extended stay, they could take this, if that has Wi-Fi, they can stay connected with their classroom and still work while they're receiving any services that they're there to have. You don't have to lose touch just because you're not in school. The big power of Google Apps for Education, I believe, still centers around the fundamentals of what the Google applications do, such as Google Docs. It's the collaborative nature of it. We worked on a grant that was put out by Allegheny Intermediate Unit for STEAM initiative, and I had the pleasure of participating with a few teachers on that, and we said, well, fine, if we're going to do this, let's use this. We created our narrative in a Google Doc and then shared that narrative with all the other teachers. And it was pretty amazing for me to be working on a section of the narrative, and while I'm typing, all of a sudden something pops up here within the document and more typing's happening. And it says, Mr. Pollard is editing, and boom, 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 boom. You can just see the words appearing right before your eyes. And I can read what he's typing, and maybe that gives me another idea, or maybe we want to say it this way. So, immediately it's like, are we chatting or are we typing? You're doing both. That's what teachers can do with students while they're at home, or while they're homesick and I'm in class, or a student is given an assignment by a teacher. I store my video of my assignment or my lecture. The kids at home can watch my lecture while at home, then be given the assignment, start their work, but then when they come to school, your assignment is to continue working on the project, and I'll help you. That's referred to as a flipped classroom. Okay, so I teach you when you're at home, I help you when you're at school. That's what we can do with this type of technology. What we have currently in place is a fixed computer that stays here. And unless you're really good at keeping track of what's on your flash drive, and you got a big enough flash drive, because my wife teaches computer classes, and they do a lot of video. Okay, if you ever worked in, nowadays even pictures are several megs because of the high resolution. Try working on a video. You need a 20 gig flash drive just for one part of your assignment of what you're working on. That's not feasible. So they're stuck And I don't have that software at home anyhow. So they're stuck. They can only work on their project when they're at school. And in a lot of cases, due to what we're limited to in server space, you got to sit at that exact computer because we don't have enough storage space to keep it on the server, and it slows down the network. Everything will be in a central location, and it's not necessarily here. It makes management a lot easier. Teachers can set up. There are a couple tools that we will be incorporating and bundling with this is the Hupera Teacher Classroom. Now, I mean, it's just a software package that allows teachers to manage their classes, to set up their assignments, to communicate with students in their class, and see the progress on their assignments and grade and receive feedback and assessment on those applications. On the other side of it, GoGuardian is another tool that would be more for myself to be able to manage the accounts and the devices. With GoGuardian, I can pull up any student and see screens, what they have open. If they've been to different internet sites, I can click the URL that they're and see the exact page that they were on. I can basically follow along in their footsteps or be anywhere at any point in time and either follow the breadcrumb trail or watch over the shoulder. Either way, whatever you need to do. Also, it gives us more power to control what's done on the computer. We push out the applications. I don't have to go to the computers and install software or go back around an image and make sure that what software is used on that computer that I just had to replace belongs in this classroom. I can, from a centrally managed position, push out all the applications that we provide. And if I'm no longer worrying about that computer, what's on that computer, is that computer working? Oh, what? You got a problem with your Chromebook? Here's another one. Log in as yourself. Boom, all your stuff's there. Everything you need. We don't have to worry about the traditional problems of technology. So, any questions?
Cost of the Chromebook versus cost of a laptop.
A good laptop probably is $900. And when you factor in warranties and things like that. Chromebooks anywhere from $250 to $300. Yes.
Neighboring school districts, how many are into this type of technology? Any idea?
I don't have an exact number, but it's becoming more and more prevalent. I know neighboring Latrobe was doing not necessarily Chromebooks, but a one-to-one laptop initiative like probably 8 years ago through initiatives that they were exploring.
I think a lot of the early initiatives were through Apple and through iPads, and sometimes it's good to sort of be a follower because what happened and what a lot of the people we're speaking to, Apple has become not necessarily a user-friendly environment, and also it has become prohibitively expensive. And Google was a follower in the educational environment, and they really seem to position themselves to understand what the needs were in this environment. And the first one was cost.
Yeah, I think we've kind of played the wait and see game for a while and avoided a lot of the pitfalls and avoided a lot of the wasted money. And I think now we see things as it's time. We need to change the way we do things.
Well, I don't know an exact number, but I know there are a number of districts in the county who have either gone with something like this or a one-to-one iPad initiative. So we're certainly not the front runners by any means.
Right, and I guess what I'm getting at here is not that we want to be the front runners, but that we want to be there in the front somewhere, as opposed to pulling up from behind and trying to catch up. We're not doing that. We're there. Okay, my second question, every student will have one of these, correct?
I guess, except for the primary section.
Okay. At the end of the roll.
All right. Now, you indicated that you can look at every site they've been to, which is after the fact.
Oh, during the fact, too.
No, when I mean after the fact, I mean is they've already been to the site. What monitoring do we do?
Oh, there's filtering, too.
That's what I want to know.
Yeah,
Tell
there's
me about
content filtering that prohibits objectionable stuff, but that doesn't mean that kids can't find all the dark, crevices and cracks and things like that, or
just as they can now.
Yeah,
just as they can now.
But that's a good point.
It is
right.
Well, again, I only say that because we're not providing them with computers now to do that. We would be providing them with a computer to do that. So we're now opening the field of students that, if they're smart enough, they can get places where if they didn't have a computer, they couldn't get there.
Let's stay with that for a moment,
Okay.
Bob, because that's a really good point.
It is.
Yes.
And when we went and spent a day at Bethel Park, and they showed us their management system, one of the things that we really like about Google Education is that it is tightly controlled. In other words, when you get your Chromebook, you are automatically restricted. We know what you're allowed to have, just what we let you have. And from there, you get into the kids that try to go outside of that. But in real time, the principal of Independence Middle School in Bethel Park was showing us how he, on a quite regular basis, gets requests, either from teachers or students, to access certain sites. And he pulls it up and he makes decisions, along with the tech director, about for the kids, it's a lot of gaming stuff. And he was showing us examples of ones that, what was an example of one that he wasn't comfortable with? It was, but they were very pleased and very comfortable with the firewall, with the difficulty. So here's your Chromebook, here is what we put on it, here's what you can access, even from home. So we're opening up the learning environment to home, but we can go on and we can see what kids are at any point. When a kid's at home, we can see what they're doing at any time with our Chromebook.
Bob, the other thing that's important to note, some of these are camera equipped. Ours will not be camera equipped.
Only teachers will be, so they can actually record lessons.
Exactly.
Okay.
But we can't have kids taking pictures of things and posting them. So that won't be an issue.
Mr. Pushkar, how will this affect your ability, again, as far as your activities as in technology, monitoring all of this? Again, we're going to be able to handle that with just you?
Well, myself and Mr. Smithola, we're going to have our work cut out for us, but hopefully in the long run, it should make things a bit easier for us, especially if we have every student has their own computer. We have maybe less and less need of antiquated equipment. Like right now, our biggest thing in the classroom is, you got any extra computers? I need more stations for kids to be able to take accelerated reader tests. Well, if every kid's got one of these, then there wouldn't be no need to have those additional computers in the classroom for accelerated reader. Everybody can, want to take a test, break out your Chromebook and do that. So we spend a lot less time patchworking together, trying to Frankenstein computers to keep enough accessibility out there. The other thing too is, with the systems that we have in place right now, it's not impossible, but it takes a lot of work for me to track down what is being done and what has been done with the computers. The way this GoGuardian is set up, I can dial in, email me if you see anything going on. It's watching for me. If it starts to detect a trend that, this site is getting a lot of attention, I can pull up pie charts and say, what's the most popular site of the week? Why is, I don't know. I mean, it'd be silly for me to make up some kind of bogus URL, but let's say this website becomes very popular, and let's take a look at it, and I see why this is so popular. We need to block this.
Right.
And it can say, hey, you may want to look at this. I can get email alerts, we've got a student in the middle school that keeps getting denied access, keeps hitting prohibited sites. Why is this kid constantly is he actively seeking, or is he just accidentally stumbling into sites that are not deemed appropriate? He's trying to find a way around it. Maybe we want to have a talk with this student.
So the system would allow you to be able to, it would automatically notify you, you can put in such.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. And you can dial in those thresholds.
And principals as well.
Right. And it doesn't have to just come to me.
Right.
I can delegate some of that power.
I guess it's just something else I'm thinking about as you're talking about. Again, in the interest of serving all of our kids, we talk about high quality learning for all. If your kid is able to have access at home to a laptop and a printer and all those things, you're kind of at an advantage in terms of producing the work that you want to train the teachers. But if we say it's for all, then we need to provide all of them with the same tools to be successful. And that's what the 21st century is going to look like. So I think it's just us being very thoughtful about making sure the kids are not only content ready, but also product and process ready. You take this stuff and include it into a format that your boss wants. And that's what this is. It's like not giving everybody a textbook and saying, I expect you to still be responsible for the knowledge. Well, it's probably not a good way of teaching.
Mr. Clara, what about the students, since we have 50% free and reduced lunch, what about the students that do not have internet service at home? How do they use that at home?
Chromebooks are able to do that.
Well, yeah, a lot of, you can have some of it pulled down locally, like documents and things like that. I mean, they would be able to type, and there are other things too, like any of the applications that can run. I mean, obviously, you're not going to be able to actively browse the internet for something in research purposes, but a lot of assignment material, like, you can type a paper on it, and then when you do bring it back to school and it has internet connectivity, it will transfer
And the other
those
thing,
things up.
too, that we're finding, that's a really good point, is that, and again, this is just a transformation that's occurred in the last couple of years, but more and more, when you go out in public, the places you go are almost expected to have Wi-Fi access, whether you're a fast food restaurant or Barnes & Noble or any of those places. So kids, what we think is going to happen for students that don't have that access, they'll go to houses that do if they need to have that, and hopefully they can get to those other places, go to Wendy's and sit there for a half hour.
Often your cell phone can also be a Wi-Fi hotspot, so kids may use that as a way of doing it. I think that's a great point. The library, of course, has Wi-Fi access. So there are many ways that you can get connected, but it still ultimately runs through our setups so that you're not using that Wi-Fi to go to places that you wouldn't be allowed to go to. No matter where you connect, no matter what Wi-Fi you connect to, it still has to come through us and has to be
Right.
Have we ever done any type of a survey to see how many of our students have Wi-Fi access at home? Do we have any idea how many of them actually do have it? No survey of any kind?
Yeah, we have not, but that would be very easy to do.
I think we will be doing one.
Yeah.
That's a good
The other thing, too, that this kind of fosters or instills in the students is ownership. Okay? This is yours for the entire school year, if not multiple school years. Take care of it. They don't really have the incentive, and sometimes maybe you might get the kids that, in some cases, make bad choices and willfully destroy equipment and think it's funny for the next kid. When you're picking apart the keys, you're only hurting yourself.
But can the student take the Chromebook home?
Yes, in fact, that
So even though you wouldn't be live, you would have a lot of information, the equivalent of what would be textbook type of information.
Right.
Would be on there. So it's not as though,
Yeah, I mean,
as though you wouldn't
can
have
be set up
access
to
a
like
great deal of
load
information
for
on
like
it.
take and go type thing.
Yeah.
We're hoping that this will preclude in the future our need to spend, a lot of money on paper and ink textbooks, because many of our textbooks are now available electronically. There will still be licensing fees, obviously, but a lot of money in terms of paper and ink. Michael?
Question, I remember when my daughter was in elementary school a few years ago, and she'd be homesick, and I'd call in and say, can you have her homework ready? And they'd say, come after 2:30. Well, I knew if I wasn't there by 3:15, the buses were coming, and you had to park sometimes far away, but your daughter's homesick or whatever, you have to have her in the car or whatever. So is there a way that the teachers can like send the homework assignments out over this instead of you have to go pick up the homework at the school?
In fact, that's exactly the way it's designed. Exactly. Yeah, it'll be exactly that. In fact, when it's ready for one, it's ready for all. The teacher will be encouraged to, now that we have these, we're going to be conducting our education technically online, and the teacher will be putting their materials up there for all students. So when it's available for one, it's available for all.
Instead of writing it on the board, on your whiteboard, you write it, you load it up on your Chromebook, and everybody has access to it.
The other thing I heard this year, say like we get a lot of snow days, I've heard, I don't know if it's true or not, that you can actually schedule a Saturday where all the kids log on and have a class on a Saturday, and it counts as a snow day, makeup day. Is that something that could be done also?
There was a provision for that, so yes, that's a possibility moving forward once we get the whole system up and running, yes. Something we could look into. It's a good thought.
What happens when they get lost or broken? Like, are we going to have to continually pay if they're lost or broken?
Our partners that we have talked, we've talked to 2 districts recently, and what they do is they self-insure. And it's a really neat system where if, for example, you get this $300 Chromebook, and you're right now Bethel Park, their self-insurance fee is only $25. We'd have to figure out what's right for us. But another district I talked to, their fee was $50. But when you're self-insured, let's keep the numbers simple. If you give out 100 of them at $50 a piece, you have $5,000. So if you break it, or if you break the screen and it needs repaired, it's done free of charge if you've paid your $50. And that's how you self-insure. It is the cheapest way to go. And what what we figure is by starting, and your question about the surveys, Mr. Calero, now I'm thinking of it, that's part of the materials that are involved in the parent rollout, the parent training that would start in the fall. But another part of that is communicating with our parents and letting them know that if it's $25 and $50, we need you to try to set aside $10 a month for the next 5 months. Mm-hmm. And that provided, for the district that was 50, that provided a sleeve and the self-insurance that the district does. Bethel Park said that, I mean, they have a couple of exceptions where you have the kid who's broken their screen 3 times. But other than that, they said they've been very, very successful with that issue, with damage and breakage. Very successful.
And I'll note that they went with a cheaper, easier, more easy damaged.
Didn't you say yours was called like military spec or something?
Yeah, these are ruggedized. What we picked out, they went.
When John spec'd them, we asked. Obviously, there's a trade-off between ruggedness and processing speed. And what we asked John, his expertise, is to find what he felt was the best balance. They have to be fast, or you're in trouble. But they also need to have the necessary ruggedness that we need from them.
They found themselves, they were so flimsy, like, hey, look at this, and that broke the screen. We're going lightweight. We want to go as light as possible.
And there's also a lot of student training that goes along with that. The biggest killer that we found in looking at the training materials is students putting pens and pencils on the keyboard and closing them. So there's a lot of training that goes along with the care and use of your Chromebook. Well, just a simple thing was that I never thought of, in the locker, put it upright, vertical. Don't lay it like a flat, because if you lay it flat, you're going to invariably set other things on top of it. And I never thought just putting it in like a book, like in a library.
I don't know how many of you observe kids leaving the elementary or middle school with backpacks full of stuff. They look like they're trying to climb Everest when they leave.
Heavy.
Kind of hunched.
Yeah.
What if we didn't have to have backpacks that were quite so full, and that everything that the kid needed was maybe just a Chromebook and 1 or 2 other items?
That they're holding with both hands.
Yeah, please hold it. That's not so.
That's part of the training.
How are we holding this thing? Really, again, I look at that and I see kids carrying all the materials like that. This conscientious student doesn't want to leave anything behind. A lot of textbooks are pretty big, and a lot of going to look like, whether we're all prepared for it or envisioning it or not. That's where we're going. Therefore, you made a great point. We don't want to be necessarily the first one, but we certainly don't want to be behind. We have always been thoughtful and prudent about how we approach things, kind of research things. Dr. Scott asked if we would go to Dr. Mark and saw their example. That promise you are going to look different because we are who we are. We will figure out what's best for our kids. And I'm very proud to say that I think we are the leading edge. We're providing great instruction now. We're providing great tools to work with that.
And going from school to career and school to college and all that, Bethel Park is doing a neat thing in that with their seniors, they're assigning a depreciation value to the Chromebook, and the kids have an option to buy and take it with them.
Now, I know this is, again, we're not Bethel Park, we're not Fox Chapel. There are going to be some parents that either refuse to pay the fee for the damage or refuse or can't afford it.
And we are already working and having discussions about that issue.
I mean, we're going to have to deal. I mean, there are going to be some parents that are going to fall into either one of those categories,
right.
And
because
we will have to deal with it.
What has been part of our philosophy for anything curriculum related, nobody is left behind because of their inability. And we're already having those kinds of discussions. How are we going to handle that? We don't have an answer today, but that is a question that we know that we need to answer.
Well, that's a good question, and things like that occur now with lost and damaged books. You know, we'll have to find similar ways to address those issues.
Except, again, with this, you're going to want the money up front, and the other, you're looking at trying to recover the money.
Right.
It's a little different. But again, we have benefactors in the community that may be willing to sponsor those students that can't afford the damage.
Right. One of the things that we've talked about over the years is perhaps starting a foundation. We've not done that. That might be a way to go. And then just to tack on here a little bit, Dr. Scott and I have attended, I believe, 2 meetings at the Advanced Technology Center with the Westmoreland County Workforce Development Task Force. And one of the things we keep hearing over and over and over again is employers who want to keep kids working in this county need kids who are technology savvy, and who know how to communicate and collaborate in an online environment. And we believe that this is going to give our kids that edge as well.
Okay.
Did these things ever get outdated?
Everything.
Good question, Mr. Beistel.
Yes.
What we were told with the districts that we've been talking to, that what they are speccing out to use lasts for the life that the kid has it. So I'm not saying, but the districts we're talking, they're in their phase in, so I'm not saying they're going to last from 3rd grade to 12th grade, but they're talking about a period of 5 years.
Which is about what? The 5 years is about what a computer lasts us. Now we have some that are 7 to 8 years old, and they just don't support.
Yeah, they're probably costing us money.
Yeah, they're costing us. In terms of the cost, these are a little less than $300 a piece, and then there's going to be some infrastructure.
This winter when we first started working on the budget, and on the technology side, John said, hey, just about every computer in the district is reached its useful life, and we're going to need about $320,000 to replace all teacher computers, all district computers, and that led us to a kind of a pretty intense curriculum discussion about what value would that really add to us as a district. And that led right into us looking at this environment. And for the year 1 of the phase-in, we're at the middle school. That's every middle school kid, every middle school teacher, all the infrastructure. And one of the reasons that the middle school was chosen is it is a smaller environment. We want to be able to be successful, so don't try to bite off more than we can chew. John immediately identified the middle school as having the least amount of infrastructure needs, spending, to get that up to speed, because if you're going to provide this environment, 500, 450 Chromebooks, and then not have the infrastructure to run them, that's going to be a failure. So a lot of reasons for the middle school, just because we really want to get off to a good start. Another reason is that when we do the rollout at the high school in the next year, you already have an entire class that is up and running. Those incoming ninth graders, they hit the ground running. So that comes to for everything that John spec'd out, the Chromebooks, all of his infrastructure, the management systems, like Hapera, GoGuardian, those things, just under $200,000. So then he has about another $30,000. So we went from $320,000 to $220,000, and the remaining money is to kind of put a Band-Aid on everything else that we have going in the district to keep it running while we are phasing in the Chromebooks across the district. So really this is similar to the years where we used to purchase curriculum materials every year, textbook adoptions. We'd have $200,000 in the budget every year. We haven't done that. I think this is coming up on year 5.
4 or 5, yeah.
So that gets us going. And then obviously the high schools, you know, again with those, you're going to have replacement costs then for, you're going to be replacing your 6th graders coming in and your 10th, 11th, and 12th graders. So again, 4 grades is going to be a little bit higher than 3. So you're looking at that $200,000 plus cost. But after the 18 months that we phase in, then we're just looking at buying 1 grade level per year, which takes the cost dramatically less. And then obviously your associated costs with maintaining the environment.
So just to recap, you had asked, is it in the budget? Yeah, we had originally had about 320 in the budget, and we were able to take 100 off of that with this initiative.
Now, the 320 would have replaced pretty much all the district computers. That's all well and good, but we were really started talking about value added to learning, really to learning.
Because of the fact that their life expectancy is about 5 years, once we've got everybody phased in and we're starting in 3rd grade, 4th grade, we're probably going to have this as an ongoing budget item to replenish those. Again, same as we would have textbooks. It'll be the same exact thing, and it'll just be part of the budget.
And really what's happening,
correct, yes.
Mr. Calero, you know, in the previous generation, textbooks were so important because that's the only place you could access content. And now, in just the last few years, free source content has exploded. People want you, through whether it's the Khan Academy or other areas, they want you to have the content. It's out there. So there's really a much less of a need to have fixed content. What we need to be able to do is to tie the technology to the pedagogy. And that's really the transformation that the publishing companies are in right now. And we're trying to stay, really the last thing I want to do is put the district through another $200,000 purchase of hardback books and get left behind.
The Khan Academy is actually one of the apps that is included in Google. So that's content that is already being provided by Google, one source of it.
We'd much rather have our teachers and our principals identify what they need content-wise and go out and get the licenses for those. Much more so than doing what we did just a few years ago, because that was the industry standard.
But textbooks today have been based on this date, changing, nation changing. But if you want to know history, watch history happen all the time, as opposed to what these photographs are outdated and both.
When we were at Bethel Park, we did a walkthrough, and just one example that I remember well, we were in a Spanish classroom, and you know, in the old project days of middle school Spanish, kids would be cutting things out of magazines and doing collages and stuff when they're doing the culture part. These kids, their assignment, they were in collaboration with the Family and Consumer Sciences, so they were learning about nutrition and food. Their assignment was to access a grocery website in Spain, like Giant Eagle of Spain, and they were to go shopping and meal planning. And it was in conjunction with Family Consumer Sciences. It was real time, and the kids were so engaged in it because it was so relevant. They weren't clipping anything out of a magazine, looking at a book. They were actually on the website in Spain, whatever their big Kroger's is or whatever, that's where they were. and they were planning their meals in Spanish.
I was at a conference last week, and one of the things that they emphasized were the different generations. We had Generation X, Generation Y. These kids are now Generation Z, and they do a lot of their performing, a lot of their information gathering, a lot of their lives are lived in that online environment, as opposed to how the rest of us grew up. YouTubes and videos and Snapchats and all of those things that are instantly available. That's their go-to source now. It's what this generation does, and we need to keep up with that if we're to keep them engaged.
Is there a way to track the device if somebody says it was stolen?
That's even the better thing is I don't have really any way of track. Like, we have carts of laptops. We've got lucky over the years that, we found out. I think you guys went and picked up some that were on their way to being sold. But these, if we suspect that one has been taken, they're all registered into our management system. I can place, or Mr. Smithilla can place them into our stolen organizational unit, and it starts recording. If they try to use it, number one, if you don't have a Southmoreland account, you can't use it. Okay, you can't log in. But say it's one of our students with an account or something, and they took Bobby's and thought it would be funny, But I'm gonna play with it at home or do some things to it, and I can start gathering information as to what's being done with it and make it not work. It's essentially useless, so there wouldn't be any point in taking it.
The initial $50 insurance, the replacement fee, do we pay that when we purchase the units from the company?
No, that would be something the parent would self-insure with the school.
That's an agreement with us.
We self-insure.
Yeah, we self-insure. So in other words, if your child has a Chromebook and you don't want to be on the hook if you run over with your car, you pay the $25 up front, and if you run over with the car, you get a new Chromebook free of charge because you've self-insured with the school district. So it would be something that we would manage here. Not what the business manager wants to hear, I'm sure.
I was wondering who was going to replace the Chromebook if it got damaged or destroyed.
It's like if you choose to take the insurance for the break, like they said at the park, they do is that you choose to take the insurance and you break it, okay, you got the insurance, we'll fix it. You broke it again, okay, it'll be up to us to determine the policy, but third time, you get 2 strikes, 3, you're out.
So you're hoping to accumulate a little fund of $50 fees to purchase $300 machines.
I'm
right.
sorry, you opted out of the insurance, break it, you bought it. So by refusing the insurance, you're agreeing to pay in the event that it's damaged.
We'll keep asking that question, Jim. But that is the predominant way that the districts that we've been talking to are handling it. They're being self-insured and being successful.
Yeah, that's the thought as of this evening, that could evolve as we move forward.
There are other methods to insure them, though. You can go through you can actually have insurance through a company if you want to do it. Obviously much more expensive, but you can also do that.
We can do that, right.
You can get that from the manufacturer. Right. I can take out a warranty that provides for accidental damage, but increases the cost.
It's part of our documents that says here's the.
So we'll be looking at
It's a reasonable way to start, and then we'll see where we end up with fees.
Kind of building an airplane in the sky here is what this amounts to. Okay.
So these are just for students, not for teachers. All teachers are having their.
Right.
You guys spoke of 2 phases. One's the middle school, 2 is the high school. How many phases?
Third phase is Southmoreland Elementary. SES teachers would receive theirs in the fall of 2016. And then the kids would get them January 2017, which would be about 18 months from now.
3 phases, 18 months. It's not every year.
No, each phase is about 6 months.
Yeah.
So we're within 18 months. They'll be all rolled out, yeah. With the exception of K and 1. I'm not sure if we're planning to go with 2 or not, grade 2.
Still to be,
we haven't
still to be
determined that
decided.
yet. So some of the younger
As we
kids
go
may or
along.
may not have them, but beginning with 3rd grade, 4th grade, wherever that decision's made, within 18 months, everyone would have them.
We're going to keep researching that issue.
Right. How do those kids learn best?
Gail? The teacher's daily work that they do now on the district-provided desktop, grading, scheduling, I'm sure, whatever, can they do this now on the Chromebook?
Yeah, a lot of what we do, like the grading and scheduling and all that stuff, is all done from a web page as it is. What we call the SIS, the CSIU SIS system.
So they would have that loaded.
I mean, that's just a web page. You have a web browser, you have Chrome web browser, so you'll be able to do that. And the other thing too is, I mean, coming from my standpoint and being able to see the entire storage space on our computer system there, and the files that are located in those storage spaces, there's like tons and tons and tons of teacher provided material, documents, Word documents, PowerPoints, all those things are all precariously housed on an electronic hard drive within our walls that, we have a backup system, but you could drop an atomic bomb on Alberton, Scottsdale area, and you wouldn't lose anything here because it's in Palo Alto or wherever Google has their server farm. And all those things that the work that they've done can be uploaded and converted into that system.
Even email all those functions we go through here. We're in the process of actually changing over to Google Mail, right?
Right.
Gmail.
Almost 500,000 in just over half a school year at that one middle school.
So imagine
500,000 Google Docs.
Yeah.
Running off copies of all of those things and everybody still having access to.
And it just speaks to the level of engagement in the school when you have 500,000 Google Docs that have been generated by students and teachers in 6 months of the school year.
Google Drive storage provides for unlimited storage space. Yeah, for education. There's no. You've exceeded your storage space limit. That'll be another $10,000 this year. No, I mean, it's all free for education. The Google end of it, the management tools and stuff like that. Those subscriptions are, on top of that.
Mrs. Rhodes has a question.
Yes, I was just wondering, the Chromebook, when you give it to a student, is it going to follow that student through their whole career here at the Southmoreland?
As long as it lasts.
What I was thinking of it, that's a good thing because, say you take good care of the Chromebook when you have it and you hand it in, and then the next year you come back and you were handed another Chromebook, maybe it's not yours. Well, maybe, that person didn't take such great care of it, and then you would be responsible. Yes, or something like that. So I was thinking that that would probably be a good idea to have the Chromebook follow the student throughout their career here.
We don't know. Whatever dollar amount.
It has some
capabilities. Cloud, right?
Yeah, it has some capabilities.
Haven't gotten there yet.
But essentially, it is kind of like the old days of a dumb terminal. And the best part about it too is you don't have to have one of these to do all the other stuff, but it makes sure that we can provide each student with the ability, and that way we know everybody's got the same capabilities. But let's say I go on vacation. Well, I don't want to take my Chromebook, but I want to get in, I'm a teacher, and I want to get into doing my work. I can take my own personal laptop or computer in the hotel lobby or whatever. I can get in and access all the stuff. And once I'm signed into my Google account, it's like I
kid with a fancy Apple MacBook or whatever they're called, you don't really need one of these then. You just need a Google account. You could bring your Apple MacBook or whatever to school with you.
Yeah, but for management, I mean, we want everybody to use one of these if and when, or if at all possible, to use one of these.
From the management side of it, if we're providing a Chromebook, then that's what we're going to have.
Well, you couldn't allow them to bring their own to school and do that because you don't have any control over what's on the content. So you really couldn't allow
that's what's
that.
nice about
filter,
these is
yeah.
you can dictate what's
Yeah.
on it and what's done with it. You know, a kid brings in their MacBook. Okay, I got my Google Chrome here, but I got my game loaded here. And also then some of the management, the teachers being able to see the screens and things like that will be available because those are apps that are actually loaded on the device.
It becomes a very tight and equitable environment.
Right, but Jim, to your point, at home, on their Apple Book or whatever, they can access their cloud content. So if they choose to leave their Chromebook here and use their laptop or whatever at home, that's fine. But here, we want them to use this because this is what we control.
Flexibility, you know, I can access all my Google stuff, you know, my drive from my phone if I need to. But this is much more powerful to get there.
Amazing stuff.
Any other questions on the
You're a staff member like me, and I don't
refresh
like
of the sheet?
keyboards. Is there a plug-in?
It does have a USB port that it probably will
Like the old days we had.
function with a keyboard.
We drive to slide our laptops in. You could plug in a keyboard and maybe plug in a bigger screen.
But this is this is a fairly decent sized keyboard.
Well, not for these fat fingers.
You would need that anyway, Jim. You could use what you have here.
yeah, are they Bluetooth?
It's not small, but
Bluetooth?
again, if you prefer something like that, then you can transition to a standard computer. And in a lot of cases,
Not really. You unplug that and you take it home. You come
You
in
may
before
still
you plug
need
in your
to,
keyboard and your monitor
because,
to it.
you know, like certain applications like the AFR, this isn't going to do the AFR. You know, it uses the access database.
I'm thinking about the the teacher who's sitting there working all day and might want a more ergonomically friendly keyboard and a bigger screen to look at.
And that's
Older
where
eyes.
flexibility comes in, and you can add your custom
2015, Jim.
if you need.
Just switch to voice recognition.
There you go. Any other questions on the...
I want to pick up a little bit on we've talked about it, but the concern that it be available to everyone, and you stated it very eloquently, but I think back of, we made a decision we made at the time remember when some of the neighboring boards were starting to charge for extracurricular activities? Remember that? And I remember Mr. Beistel made a very strong appeal, and he said the very kids we want to reach will be the ones who will be left out. Right. Because probably everybody around the table here, our kids, will do okay. It's the kid who doesn't have that kind of a incentive to make it easy for them to as easy as we can. And I know there are all kinds of, but to apply that same principle to access what you were talking about. That we have a very mixed population here. Let's just put it that way. And if we're not careful, the school becomes a part of a kind of a two-tier society, and we don't want that. We want everybody to. You've said that many times. But just the same principle as we did on extracurricular is a very crucial point, because if that you everybody has access to it, and to keep that. The other thing, just kind of a reflection here. I've been around here for a while, and this is one of the best curriculum discussions. Just to be, I was very happy to be a part of this, and the way it was being presented here, and the good hard questions that were being asked, they're being honored, and just very, very pleased. I'm a very lame duck around here, so it's nice I can say these kind of things.
If you have any other questions about it, or if you'd like to talk more about it, we always tell you to come visit us.
You can dial him up on a Google Hangout.
call
Yes.
it a good one. I probably won't know how to answer you that, but I will know you're trying. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Good job.
Next. Mr. Mash and Mr. Krofcheck are going to step up. We have, sometimes, what we do in our business, they sort of call it like you're building the airplane while it's flying in the sky. And, with the retirements that we had, we didn't, once those came in, we were able to really look at staffing needs and see what we possibly could do. And we have asked the board, and we've talked about it, about the possibility of having replacing positions with ultimately ends up being 3, either STEM or STEAM or science, technology, engineering, arts, math. Sometimes there's another M on the end of it, double M for medicine. But one position specifically at the middle school and a couple at the high school. And in the last several weeks, Mr. Masha, Mr. Krofcheck, Mr. Pollard, and Mrs. Polikovsky, a very high-flying, tech-centered science teacher at the middle school, they've been getting together and working on the STEM concept, which essentially is, how do we take existing curriculum, and for example, the sciences and math, how do we take 7th grade science curriculum, 7th grade math curriculum, and integrate it to where kids have a true, real experience? Don't just teach me how to multiply and divide fractions. Tell me why I need to know that, and show me. So, and we also did some visits. Mr. Pollard, Mr. Krofcheck, and I went out to Norwin and looked at their program. Mr. Pollard has been a great resource. Interestingly, we've had all this stuff before at the high school. Mr. Pollard teaches it. He's been teaching it for years. What we want to do now is greatly expand it, and again, open access to everyone. We've talked to you, we're talking to you about having a certain segment of our kids being able to reach into higher level curriculum. We're going to flip it a little bit now in this discussion, especially at the high school, and getting kids that traditionally have not accessed this programming, we want them to for the first time. These gentlemen and Mrs. Polikovsky have been working on what it would look like in the middle school and in the high school if we had a STEM program, and that leads us into, with permission, trying to find the right people who would fill those positions. Before I turn it over, in the middle school, the kids that would be in the course are in a 9-week rotation. They would get 9 weeks of this in 6th grade, 9 weeks in 7th grade, 9 weeks in 8th grade. They're in a 9-week rotation of 4 subject areas at the middle school, and then at the high school they become courses, year-long courses. So they provided a handout telling you what those skills and concepts and what the curriculum would look like, and they're going to talk a little bit more specifically about that.
Before I begin, I'm going to take a quick second to do a commercial. On next Thursday, I know that there is a board meeting on the 14th, but I invite all the board members. Our 6th grade will be going on the field trip to Laurelville, so I invite you all to join us for the day. Roughly around 7 o'clock, there is a big end of the evening, kind of like a wild animal show, so the kids love it. So I invite you to please, if you get the opportunity to join us at Laurelville, we'll be there the entire day at the 6th grade. So please join us.
What time do you arrive, Mr. Mash?
We'll probably get around 8:30, 9 o'clock.
Wear your walking shoes.
It's a fun day for the kids. Hopefully the weather will cooperate. But I also would like to thank Mr. Pollard and Mrs. Polikovsky. They really have delved into this and have given some very critical expertise and guidance to Mr. Krofcheck and I in this endeavor. As Dr. Scott had said, at the middle school, we basically are exploratory in some of our, we call them specials classes, which would be the STEM class, the art class, the computer class, and our tech educational classes. So the kids have the opportunity to experience as many educational experiences as possible, so that when they go to the high school, they have a better understanding and better options that they can pick from as they progress through the high school and hopefully their college careers. At the middle school, as you can see from the handout that we gave, there are many opportunities for us to integrate not only the science and the STEM and the math, but there are many opportunities, especially when I talk about the 7th grade and actually throughout the entire STEM curriculum. We can integrate the language arts curriculum into the STEM. We could also integrate the social studies curriculum into this. So it's a wide open field. It's a very big opportunity for us to go cross-curricular in many avenues. Just to give you an idea as to, and now keep in mind that we're in the developmental phases, and hopefully when we get the new people in place, they will also gain and give us some experience. But at the 6th grade level, we're looking at something that would be called Mars exploration, because at the 6th grade level, our science is Earth and space. So the Mars obviously will incorporate some of the concepts of the Earth and space. Please keep in mind also that I know one of the questions you might have is that is this a costly program? A lot of the things that we're looking at implementing initially are pretty much run-of-the-mill stuff that we can pick up at Walmart or whatnot. So we're hoping to minimize the initial cost. Obviously, as you delve deeper into it and you start getting into robotics, the opportunity exists for some higher expenditures, but we really want to start this program out using everyday materials that are easily accessible. The 6th grade concept will deal with Mars, as I said, and it's basically touching on our 6th grade math, which is basic math, the advanced in the 6th grade levels. We're looking at engineering, pre-engineering, and we could also integrate it with some of our, our tech education. It's a very rudimentary CAD program called SketchUp that we can also integrate it. So we're very excited at the 6th grade level. All 6th graders would have at least one 9-week block of that. Moving into the 7th grade, our 7th grade curriculum for science is the life sciences. So we kind of called it the biodome survival for our 7th grade curriculum, integrating pre-algebra and our 7th grade math into it. So we're very, very excited. It gives us the opportunity not only to deal with the biology end of it, but we're also looking at pre-chemistry and pre-physics concepts that can be integrated into it. And obviously with the life sciences, opportunity exists to really move into the social studies aspects of it too. So once again, it's a good opportunity to go cross-curricular. Our 8th grade curriculum is basically, we're calling it structural design. It's our 8th grade science curriculum is physical science, which is basically chemistry and physics. So this is a great opportunity for the kids to do some activities such as currently right now they build a car and they tested how fast it can go. This is a good opportunity for them, like architectural bridge designs, things like that, some of those activities that would really integrate some of the physics concepts into the program. And also, since it is dealing with physics, we can also integrate our Algebra 1 curriculum into it. So it's a great opportunity, as I said, for us to really mesh things together. Before I turn things over to Mr. Krofcheck, any questions that you might have?
If I may, I just want to dovetail on something you said. I had a phone conversation recently with someone, and we were talking about our STEM curriculum, and this individual said, well, there are companies that will come in and they'll build you a STEM lab for just about $200,000. And I said, well, that's great, but that's not how we do things. We'll design a curriculum, and then we'll get what we need to deliver that curriculum. Because oftentimes when you go the route of buying all the stuff first, you end up with paperweights and doorstops, but nothing that's really usable. So bear in mind, we're looking at curriculum first, and then any purchases that are made will support the curriculum that's already in place. And I just want to emphasize that.
Yeah, and I'm also very excited
you covered
that
that well also.
Yeah, we're as Dr. Scott and Mr. Clare and Mr. Pushkar had elaborated here earlier, with the middle school coming into the Chromebooks, I think that's a great opportunity for us to mesh that also into it. We can do a multitude of research on just the Chromebook and using that as a tool also. So I think there's a ton of information out there, and why not use the materials that we're going to be given to us to utilize and expand on things. So I think it's a wonderful opportunity. And I do think part of the Chromebook experience has to be an ethics. We have to teach our students how to ethically use the materials that are going to be given to them.
Questions for Mr. Masham before we go to Mr. Krofcheck? Dan?
Good evening, everyone. As we put this together, as I handed out to you the sequence here, at the high school we divided in really two areas, 9th grade and then 10 through 12. And as the last several years that we've been developing most of our schedule in that way, in putting together groups of courses which our 9th graders take a little bit separately than from 10 through 12. So that's why you see that divided there. In really a lot of the task at hand for the team that worked was to capture what we have and really put it together in this sequence, in what is relative to each other. What courses should we be offering to 9th graders, and how is it relative in the core classes of math as well as the core classes of science, and then through other elective courses, through tech ed, through informational sciences, what do we have and where are the gaps that we need to fill? Because we want to expand this curriculum for all students at all levels. In particular, a lot of the coursework coming on board as college preparatory. Traditionally, as Dr. Scott had mentioned, we've had a lot of this coursework for years. Mr. Pollard has been teaching a lot of these courses for years. We want that shift to be to the college preparatory, to whereas kids traditionally into the career and technical school going in that path would be taking these courses. A lot of students that may be in AP Physics were not involved in a course on robotics. So looking, as you can see, the skills and concepts, we had to decide what are they most looking for at that grade level and which courses are most relevant. Some of the courses that you will see in the sequence, Introduction to STEM, CAD, Architecture, Structural Engineering, Internet, Web Design and Development, all dovetail very well into the current 9th grade core curriculum with Algebra 2 and Earth Space Science. At the 10-12 level, skills and concept, as they get more complex, how we troubleshoot problem sources, communication skills, creative solutions to 21st century problems, leadership skills, organizational skills. What courses that we currently have in the cores of math and science, and how do they dovetail with things in technology, education, and information sciences? Courses like green tech, biotech, electronics, robotics, competition robotics, which we've had for several years. How do we grow that? Digital photography, screen printing, entertainment tech, commercial graphics, mechatronics. Those are some of the tech ed, or what are currently packaged and are called STEM courses in a lot of districts. We thought we would put into this organizational system. And overall, why? Because it brings life and relevance to why you're taking your Algebra 3, or why are you taking trigonometry? How is this relevant? How's this coursework engaging kids in practical applications? How's biology related to green technology? how is biology related to energy systems, and that is really the importance, and I think of the work that we've been doing in planning this STEM secondary curriculum. Any questions for me? Yes, sir.
These curriculum courses that you have here,
Mm-hmm.
do you have the teachers to actually administer these programs? I mean, are they qualified to do all of the things that you have listed here?
Well, currently we have Mr. Pollard, who's a tech ed teacher, as well as I believe we were seeking 2 positions that were posted that would be looking for tech ed or physics or math certifications. And a lot of the other courses would already exist with the math and science department.
Yeah, I'm just looking at some of the ones that you have here, like the robotics, the competition robotics, digital photography, screen printing, entertainment technology. Again,
Yes.
I just wondered if we had the expertise to deal with all these. Are we looking for some additional staffing or different staffing in order to be able to provide this for the students?
And as I said, I believe that we were seeking the positions in tech ed, physics, and math.
Yeah, that's a very good question, and we are two of the positions we're replacing as we would be 2 of the tech ed teachers that are currently retired, and as we replace them, we asked for when we internally posted it and when we seek those individuals externally as well, we're looking for either physics, mathematics, or tech ed certifications, because those are the only certifications that, according to the certification staffing policy guidelines through the Department of Ed, that are certified to teach what they call STEM-related courses. And we've had a number of individuals with middle school math. For example, middle school math is not a certification that lends itself, according to the regulations, to STEM-related technologies. General science is not. So they're looking for physics, mathematics, and technology education certifications. Very good question, and that's the short answer.
Yeah, those ones that in math and physics, again, do they generally, I mean, do they have experience in these particular areas? I mean, I can see that one in technology, but again, generally math and physics teachers, would they be qualified to teach these particular subjects? How do, I mean, and then do they, they are, I mean, these are pretty specific.
Right.
They are, and go ahead, Tim.
What we have found is, technology education as a certification program has been around for a long time.
Okay.
In the old days, that was metal shop, wood shop, those types of things. And as the world has changed, you had some very traditional things being done by some very traditional teachers. And the courses that you referenced are, that is what today's educational technology programs are training teachers to do.
Okay.
Now, so you asked about, could a physics teacher do it? That's very individual. For example, we have at the high school, was it NASA that he worked for? We have a physics teacher who used to be a rocket scientist, and he knows as much about all of this stuff as anybody, maybe other than Mr. Pollard.
His original degree was in engineering, and then he went back and got his.
So we're looking at some very qualified individuals here with probably some really solid backgrounds in the sciences.
Yes.
A limited number of people probably out there that we'll be able to secure.
And that's why, like we often do, we try to go after it early to find those. If we're bringing someone in new, one of those blue chip people that has this degree and is actually doing this.
And again, a lot of the coursework you see there, Mr. Pollard out here behind the camera does a lot of those, and his certification is technology education.
If these are really interesting, I don't think you'd handle all the students that might want to take all of these different courses. I'm not saying he's not qualified to teach every one of them. It's just handling that many students.
Yeah, we'll have
needing, as I said, you're going to need some others.
Right?
And Mr., for the whole board, just as a point of clarification, because it is an important one. When you're coming out of the traditional model, Mr. Pollard has a very high-flying program. He is doing these things. But in the traditional model, it was, our low-tech kids kind of that landed in those kinds of courses just as they landed in the other technology courses. We're shifting gears and making all of the offerings college preparatory. We don't want to lose any of those other kids because they're already proving that they can do it. I talked to you guys last month about our first VOTEC kid ever taking AP chemistry. They're already doing it. We know they can do it. But what we have in kind of, the negative side about chasing class rank is that we had kids that may have really loved a course in robotics, but they wouldn't take it because it didn't have the quality points that went along with the level of course. So we're saying, hey, you know what, this really is college and career preparatory. Let's designate it as that. Let's get everybody. We already have the kids, the traditional kids, so-called. We want everybody to access. We want to greatly expand the kids that are taking these courses. We want it to be attractive and engaging for everyone.
Any other questions for myself, for Mr. Masha?
Gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you.
Budget discussion?
Mr. Calero and Mr. Marnell.
I passed out tonight a brief summary. Go over our progress in developing a proposed budget for adoption later this month. Of course, we have to adopt the proposed general fund budget by the end of May, and of course, adopt the final budget by June 30th. And we need 30 days between these adoptions, so I know you want to look ahead to decide on a night to adopt the proposed budget. Just threw out some dates for consideration: May 20th, then looking into June, then it would be Monday, June 22nd or later. If you went Thursday, May 21st, then you're at, again, Monday the 22nd, because you still got that 30-day window, or later. Trying to avoid the weekends, of course. And Tuesday, May 26th, coming back from Memorial Day, and then you've got June 26th, 29th, or 30th. So just something to think about there as we make this decision later. I attached an update of the working draft of the budget as it stands today. Again, this is not the proposed budget. This is just a work in progress. Next week, we'll be ready to start printing out updated detail pages. So if anybody wants to drop off their binder, I'll be glad to insert new pages for you and refill them up. Or if you want me to just bring pages to the next meeting, I can give them to you and you can insert them, or whatever you think about that, rather than spend money for new binders and dividers. Right now, as we stand, the updated net overall budgetary expenditure increase from the current budget to next year's proposed budget is an increase of $1,221,105, or 4.48% over this year's budget. And now in progress from our April, I think it was April 26th discussion, or 22nd, that's a decrease overall from March to now of $491,000. I've continued to make adjustments to expenditure accounts and also in our local collections. Of course, as of yet, we have not booked or even proposing an Act 1 tax increase, nor do I have included any of the new monies that Governor Wolf had proposed. Right now, our projected revenues are looking to increase about $446,000, or almost 1.7% over the current year projections. The bottom line in this current draft is a deficit of $1,776,000. Before taking into account using our existing committed ERIP funds of $304,500, which I call the old ERIPs, we have that traditional budgetary reserve amount of $100,000. I'm considering and proposing to you that we use from our assigned fund balances of $156,000 for the new ERIPS that will be starting in July. And then, of course, any of those special projects that are considered for final adoption using, again, monies from our assigned fund balances for those. Therefore, our true, if you want to look just at the operating portion of the budget, our true current draft operating deficit is $790,663 versus last month's draft of $971,995. So, between April and this month, that's a net overall improvement of $181,000. If we subtract out the special projects and equipment, our operating budgetary expenditure increase is $795,919, or 2.92% over the current year's budget, 14-15. That's very close as a budgetary increase to CPI indexes and inflation. Again, remember, we're not proposing an Act 1 tax increase at this time, nor are we using any of Governor Wolf's new money. We have to continue discussion on our special projects and any potential operating cuts. I know Friday we have tomorrow we have the bid opening for the high school entrance project, so we'll be able to get a firm number to compare to what was estimated. And also tomorrow we're going to be meeting with the architects to talk about the gymnasium project. Being that the gymnasium project probably would not come to final bid until I think maybe mid to late June.
If at all possible, because we have permission to move forward on it from the board. So if at all possible, we would like to get that awarded or not awarded at the June voting meeting. Mr. Scheller he's going to come down and take a look at the project on Friday, work with the installers to make sure it's spec'd correctly. We have to advertise it in 3 consecutive weeks. Right. So that means we can do a Saturday, a Sunday, and the following Sunday. That gets us our 3 weeks. Then we can have an opening. So we're hoping to be able to bring a figure to you as close to the beginning of the summer as we can, so that we can get the project underway and have it ready to go before school starts should you decide to move forward with the project. The other thing I'll just mention to you while we're on that subject, I was going to mention it later, but one of the things that we had talked about doing in conjunction with this project is looking at the gymnasium lighting. But in talking to the gentleman from Honeywell, because we had talked about the energy savings contract, and he told us to go ahead and move forward and talk to those people. And one of the things he looked at was gymnasium lighting that could be included with that project. And that gentleman will be here next week to give you an executive summary of what a project such as that might be able to do for us. And then you can give us some direction as to whether you want to move forward in looking at energy companies, energy savings companies, and so on and so forth. That's just an aside, but the scope of the gym project has decreased a little bit if you're planning to do an ESCO at the primary center, Ruffsdale, and the high school, to save some energy costs there and also get us the air conditioning that we would like to see, obviously, at the primary center.
I guess my first question
The ESCO monies, by the way, would not be in this budget at all, so not to worry about that.
I guess my first question would be, and not necessarily directed to you, Jim, but it'll come out that way, is that we're looking at a true, at this point, current draft operating deficit of $790,000, which we would have to somehow cover. I would like to place this on the record just for everyone's, again, just so you realize what we have done in the past. In the 13-14 budget, as a board, we passed that we would have a $249,000 budget deficit that we would take out of the general fund. we expected to withdraw that money out to balance the budget. The reality of it is that at the end of 13-14, when all the numbers came in, we actually had a surplus of $565,000. You add those two together, and we're talking about over $800,000 more in the general fund than we as a board had voted to expend. I'm proposing that we've already got the money. We've already spent it. We put it in the savings account of the general fund, and now we need to use that money to balance the budget this year.
And the hope, Mr. Calero, would be, just as we planned in previous years and didn't use it, our hope would be to continue to be as frugal as we know how to be and not use that money. Exactly.
And again, right now, Jim is working on looking at what the figures finally will be for the 14-15 year, of see what figures we have there, and we may come in at under budget again. Again, throwing that money into our savings account of the general fund. But again, from my point of view, we have already allocated that $800,000. We have already approved the expenditures, and we've not used them. We've thrown them in the savings account, and now it's time to pull them out and use them to balance the budget this year.
A couple things just to dovetail on what you say. Some of the gym floor, the high school entryway, and even with the technology refresh, those are generally one-time expenditures. We would like to eventually, when things loosen up, get technology into the operating budget as an ongoing expenditure. But to get us started, those are things that at home, when you need a new refrigerator or you want to put a new kitchen floor in or you need new windows, you take it out of your savings account.
It's a capital expenditure.
Exactly.
It's not an operating expenditure.
So the gym floor, the high school entranceway, the technology refresh, no concerns there about taking that out of our fund balance. What we don't want to do is get ourselves in a situation where our expenditures and our revenues are so far apart, and we keep rating that fund balance, because if we do, it soon will not be there. So we need to be very diligent. I concur with what you said about our ability to build that fund balance up. But if we do that year after year, that gap continues to widen. So we need to be very diligent and make sure that we're providing the revenues or cutting the expenditures to keep that gap as narrow as we can.
Any questions about any of that? Hopefully, as I said, if Jim continues to pare this down as he has to this point, again, the amount that we have to take out of, though again, all of it will come out of the fund balance, it really is expenditures that we have already allocated, or in this particular case for the new expenditures, are capital expenditures, which we would have taken out of the fund balance anyway. I guess the next question will be when we need to do a preliminary vote on this.
Right. And that's something you can either discuss now, but we will vote on it when we convene our voting meeting.
From my point, Jim, when any preference for you? Does it matter? I guess you gave us lots of options here.
Would the May 26th benefit having 6 more days to gather more information, and maybe possibly, I doubt it, but information from the state as well?
Well, it is very possible. There's still some unknowns out there, of course. And I think as we all feel pretty certain that unless some miracle happens, I don't think our legislature is going to pass a budget by June 30th. So
I don't think waiting is going to make any difference as far as the state funding goes.
And I don't want to see us get into a position like what happened last summer. We waited till the end, hoping that they would pass a budget on time, and they didn't. So, but anyway, another unknown there we're still waiting on is the special education budget from the intermediate unit. Again, I have estimates in there, so we should probably be okay with that. As far as any other material changes between now and a couple weeks from now, I don't foresee any. The benefits are pretty well established. The salaries are pretty well established. I know you're going to, right now, the budget proposes replacing 10 of the 12 retired positions, so that's where we're at with that. The next thing that we'll be waiting on is insurance renewals, property or casualty, fire, auto, workers' comp. Those will be coming in hopefully by the end of the month, so we'll have those numbers for June. So again, unless something really big happens in the next 2 weeks, I really don't see the budget changing all that much from where it stands right now. I'm assuming right now that the board either as a whole or a majority are fine with these projects that are built into the budget. And we'll keep them in there for the proposed budget. And again, after you do proposed budget, that's not your final budget, so you still have that next month, and you can have additional meetings in between to think about, okay, maybe we go ahead with all these, maybe we don't, or whatever, maybe something else comes up that we need to materially modify the budget. So.
Mr. Calero, what did you project the date? And then we could look at it for next week. And then those who, the 20th, 21st, 22nd.
I personally would prefer the 20th, but
that's okay. Project it, and then let's take a look and see how.
Well, we're actually going to vote on that after this meeting. We have a special voting meeting.
Right.
For the purpose of setting
I'm trying
that.
to move it along.
Absolutely.
So we're not voting now. We're just throwing out. So you're
but
saying
Wednesday
the 20th. Yeah.
We're in May, Jason.
Yeah. You do it on Tuesday.
Okay.
People will be at the polls. That's right.
So
that's not a good idea.
So you kind of, the two of you kind of cancel each other out on 20th.
I definitely won't. I won't be here on the 20th.
Oh, okay. I see. Gotcha.
Which is not a big deal.
No, it is.
The 622
Sure.
is the final. Yeah, gotcha. Gotcha. Yeah.
Is the following, and then we're getting into the 26th.
I would prefer, just from my standpoint, the 20th or the 21st. It's when we get into June. Sometimes people have vacation plans, things come up. So if we adopt a proposed budget early, and then we get to say June 22nd, and we can't get a quorum, then we have June 23rd and June 24th. If we wait later in the end of the month, we get into a situation like we had last year where we couldn't get a quorum that was able to approve a final budget, and then we were out of a fiscal year. So I would prefer to adopt the proposed budget early, and that gives us flexibility at the end.
Jason, are you?
The 2021,
is everybody else around on the 20th? I'm just thinking, is Wednesday always out for you?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I would prefer not to wait till the 26th.
Well, I think if it suits the rest of it, if Jason is willing to defer to us, we should go ahead on the 20th. I don't know how you feel about that, Jason. But if everybody else can be here, because it's important that Bob's here as the chair.
Did you say you couldn't be here the 21st? I absolutely.
Yeah.
So we'll vote on that after this meeting. We have the voting session.
Sure.
We can adjourn to executive session after we go through this.
I was going to say, I'll take a motion to.
We'll adjourn to our voting meeting here, and then we'll adjourn to executive session.
That's what I suggest.
Yes.
I always forget that term. What's suspend the rules? They suspend the rules here. Instead of voting.
We don't have paving adjourned.
Just personnel, so people have to stick around for voting.
I think we have some in the maintenance budget. Mr. Mizwa, is he still where to go? Okay. Yeah, there is some repair type paving, but not full blown. Yeah, so there'll be some patchwork that's in there. In terms of maybe cutting out some sections and redoing, but but not like we did out here at the main thing. And what I'd like to do is get some of those things patched in for this year and then get into the paving project next year. Very good point that some of those roads are getting a little nasty.
Any more discussion?
I missed a little bit of that. Are we looking following summer, 2016, to do some additional paving work? Not this
Talking,
summer.
right, yeah. And then the other thing in terms of paving that I'll share with you is the watershed is going to do some paving for us down near the maintenance shed, and they're going to be putting some permeable asphalt in near the high school to take care of some drainage and runoffs. And actually, we're going to ask you to approve that next week as well. That work. And it's the work we had talked about at a previous meeting.
So we can just recess.
Lee's been going over those prints, so you'll have that information if you need it.
Temporarily to the voting meeting.
But that's at no cost to us.
And then we'll come back.
No,
And
it's
then we'll
not.
have another motion
Right.
to
Forgot to put 'em on.
go into executive session for the balance of the planning session, personnel. Adjournment.
Okay, ready to move forward?
Old business, seeing none. New business, approve revisions to policy 918.
Right, last month we posted a policy 918, Title I Parent Involvement. Just had a couple of changes in the nomenclature to match current regulations, so we'll ask you to approve that.
Any discussion or questions? Hearing none, post policy 237.
Yeah, we're going to ask to table that for a month in light of the discussion we had earlier in this meeting. We need to make sure that policy 237 is congruent with the new initiatives that we're moving forward on, so we're going to ask that that be moved to next month until we've had time to make sure that everything's aligned.
2015-16 Adelphi Education Service Agreement.
Right, we have alternative education services through Adelphi. We will ask that you approve the service agreement for the 2015-16 school year. That's basically for students who have behavioral situations that preclude them from being in the regular school without disrupting the education of themselves or others, or the safety of themselves or others.
Questions? Professional service agreement with Excella Health Physician Practices.
You may remember last year we made a switch in our school physician situation, and we made an agreement with Excella Health to provide our school physicians. That has worked exceptionally well. Our nurses are quite happy. Mr. Swink's been quite happy with the level of support we've been getting from physicians for our sporting events. There is an automatic renewal clause in that contract. And we would just like you to approve that. There's no change. It's the same cost as it was last year. And we would ask that you approve that renewal for us.
Questions? 2015-16 CWCTC proposed budget.
Right. You each got a copy of the CWCTC proposed budget. And if you look on page 12, our proposed cost, our anticipated cost for 14-15 was $403,329. Next year we're looking at $427,659. That just has to do with basically an increase in tuition that would match the same kinds of increases that we just talked about in our budget discussion. So we'll be asking you to approve that budget next year. And Jason, as the CWCTC board member, do you have anything you'd like to add or clarify?
Look on page 8 as a breakdown of what is increased and what is decreased. You see that debt service at 370 is a big increase. And that's what made the total budget increase to 8% this year.
And the debt service has to do with the ESCO project, right? And so that's the work that was done on the roofs and the heating systems and all of those things that accounts for most of that increase. Questions on it?
First line, it says maintenance supervisor salary. 2014-15 was $58,640, and for 15-16 it says 0, and it says it's declined 100,000%. What is that about?
The current maintenance supervisor is retiring, so we're promoting 2 maintenance people to team leaders, and they're going to do his job. Just switch some positions around.
Okay. Any more questions? Hearing none, adoption of resolution for 2015-16 CWCTC anticipation loan.
Right. Every year, Central Westmoreland Career and Technology Center, and we've talked about this before, so you're a little bit familiar with it, does a revenue anticipation loan with PNC Bank. And for this particular year, they are asking member boards to approve a revenue anticipation loan in the amount of $6.3 million with PNC Bank, and that would be at an interest rate of fixed rate of 0.96%, which would result in interest over the year, if my figures are correct, approximately $60,000. And Jason, do you want to talk any more about the discussions that you've had at the board level there? I know you talked a little about it last meeting.
Yeah, here we're not a fan of that anticipation loan. At our last meeting, we decided to, we voted on to approve a committee of business managers. I don't know if superintendents are involved. We're starting it right now to get this changed. So by next year, with the hiring of a business manager, we can do away with this anticipation loan.
And that's, I think, very good news.
Yes.
Jason, can they borrow all that money at one time, or they borrow only what they need?
Life of the expenses. They borrow it yearly, the whole thing all at one time, just $6 million all at one time.
Yeah, I believe they borrow it all at one time, and then at the end of the year, we get a bill, for the previous year, so it's almost always a year behind. Jim, is that your understanding?
Yes.
Yeah.
Any more questions?
So we will ask you to consider that for next week as well.
Summer recreation program?
Hey, each year we've provided support not to exceed $2,500 for a summer programming at Laux Park for the summer feeding. Last year we expanded that and we made the same offer to Everson Borough, limiting it to $2,500. I'm not sure what Scottdale spent last year, but I think Everson spent about $600. So they're very frugal with their programming as well. But what that does, a couple of things. It gives our students something constructive to do during the summer, supervised playgrounds, activities, arts, crafts, maybe a little bit of reading fun, those kinds of things. And it also helps to increase participation in the summer feeding program. So parents are a little bit more motivated to get students over for the summer feeding. So we would ask that you would approve those expenditures as well. And that's a match. The boroughs of Everson and the borough of Scottdale also provide a matching fund, if you will. And if the cost, for example, at Scottdale were to exceed $5,000, we would still be limited to our $2,500.
Questions or comments? Hearing none, board approval for unsold property.
The next item is there's some unsold property that has been subject to sheriff's sale for unpaid taxes, and it is not sold, so it's just kind of one of the stagnant properties sitting there. So it's about to go into the repository, but on a technicality, the taxing municipalities or the taxing bodies need to approve that, so we'll ask for your approval to permit the county to put that property into the repository. And my supposition is that eventually it will go into the land bank and be sold and hopefully rehabbed and back onto the tax rolls. So this would be step one for that particular property.
Questions? Hearing none, board approve the donation of an obsolete mixer.
Right, at the primary center is a floor mixer, a rather large machine that hasn't worked for how many years, Lynn? Okay. So it's one of those paperweights that we have. The Everson Volunteer Fire Department seems to think that they might be able to refurbish it and use it for some of their activities. So we would ask you to approve that donation. They're certainly a worthy community service organization, work hard to raise their funds. And I don't know if you've been watching the news lately about the fire departments and some of the disparities in their funding, and certainly Everson is not one of the fire departments that's rife with funding, so I think this is a good thing to do.
Questions? Seeing none, citizens' comments? Hearing none, any board members have anything? We need a motion to suspend the rules for the vote of the voting of the budget date. Need a motion? Motion by Mrs. Rhodes, second. Second by Mr. Miller. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Do we need a roll call again?
Yes.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Alt? Mr. Beistel?
Here.
Mr. Calero?
Here.
Mrs. Love? Here. Mr. Miller?
Here.
Mr. Pelakowski?
Here.
Mrs. Rhodes? Here. Mrs. Shipley? Mr. Benz?
Here. Let the record show there are 7 present. Citizens' comments?
No comment cards, sir.
Thank you. Special voting meeting.
It is recommended that the board schedule a meeting on May the 20th at 7 p.m. in the middle school cafeteria to consider the posting of the proposed 2015-2016 school budget.
And please add to that, and to advertise the same.
And to advertise the same. Thank you.
Need a motion, please?
So be it.
Motion by Mr. Beistel, second by Mr. Miller. Questions? Can you do that quickly?
Does John have access to our website on his Chromebook? Charlie, you would have that on the calendar, right?
Is it on the Southmoreland website?
In the event that there is a conflict, we'll move it to the library.
Is that okay with the motion? Mr. Beistel, okay with that motion? To add that?
Yeah.
Mr. Miller? Okay.
All right, so
So we'll
if
add
there's a
that to the motion.
conflict, it will be moved to the library. Okay, great, thank you.
Would SPS cafeteria?
What's the date?
May 20th.
Library.
Roll call, please.
Is the time at 7 o'clock? Did you say that?
Yes.
I'm having trouble.
I did say that, yes.
Okay, I'm sorry. I apologize.
So the motion reads, it's recommended that the board schedule a meeting at 7 p.m. on May 20th in the middle school cafeteria to consider the posting of the proposed 2015-2016 and to advertise the same. In the event there's a conflict in scheduling, the board meeting will be relocated to the middle school library.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Beistel?
Yes.
Mr. Calero?
Yes.
Mrs. Love? Yes. Mr. Miller? Yes. Mr. Pelakowski?
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes? Yes. Mr. Benz?
Yes, motion passes 7-0 with 2 absent. Citizens' comments? Hearing none, I need a motion to adjourn to executive session for personnel. Need a motion to adjourn the public meeting of the voting meeting. Motion by Mrs. Rhodes, second. Second by Mrs. Love. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Need a motion to adjourn to executive session for personnel and 3 tax litigation items. Motion by Mr. Beistel. Second. Second by Mr. Miller. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes 7-0.